Hello everyone, how's it going? So Dark and Darker. Now, I've never played this game, but it was the biggest indie hit of recent memory, right up there with Valheim. And the game was very popular. A lot of people liked the playtest, and then information started coming out that Nexon actually was developing Dark and Darker, codename P3, and the people responsible for the game left the company, took confidential information from the company, and used it to develop their own game, Dark and Darker. And since then, their company Iron Mace has been completely raided by Korean officials. Now, a lot of people are on the side of the indie developers because they're small and they're being attacked by a big corporation. That's kind of the story. A lot of people like the David versus Goliath mentality of small companies overtopping the bigger company. But when you read through the information, actually comb through it doesn't seem that way. It does seem that Nexon has a legitimate case. Now, let me make this very clear. When you work for a company, they own whatever you produce. Like if you write for the company, software development, art, graphic design, accounting, whatever it is, they always have things like non-complete clauses or information to make sure that you can't, like, for example, if you're an accountant and you're managing hedge funds and you decide to leave that company, you can't take those clients for yourself. They're part of the company's own clientele, and you can't share any information about that. Same thing comes with software development. You cannot use whatever software you've developed for whatever company you're working for, or say you purchase third-party assets from a company and sell them or use them for your own personal gain. Like if you bought assets from the Unreal store and started selling them for yourself, it can't do that. It was actually a famous case between Silicon Knights, the people who made Too Human and Eternal Darkness, using the Unreal Engine, accusing Epic Games of keeping certain secrets for Gears of War with the Unreal Engine, and then them saying they developed their own engine for Too Human. Turns out that was a lie. A lot of the source code for their new engine was actually repurposed Unreal Engine code, and yeah, it's a terrific video if you want to watch it from Matt McMuscles regarding Too Human. But nevertheless, in this situation, the developers of Dark and Darker came out, and what really kind of rose my first red flag was this right here. How the person in question, apparently this is one of the lead developers for P3, the Nexon project, actually was given access to a private server in order to conduct his work during the whole pandemic. And once Nexon told the person to stop accessing that server, the person still accessed the server. There was a data leak, which it's kind of suspicious that this data leak happened, and apparently the source code for that game was used for Dark and Darker. Now, I know a lot of people are going to take he sent a link up here, which takes you to this, which is basically a complete detailed Google Files doc about showcasing all the assets they got from, plugins and other tools from the Unreal store and all that. And I know a lot of people are going to use the Moist Critical video as an example. He actually is in big favor of the developers, which again, I saw that video and I think his argument is extremely poor because, like I stated for the Too Human with Silicon Knights versus Epic Games, it's not the assets that matter. It's not the assets. Anyone who knows anything about game development knows that game developers often use the same assets. From the Wilhelm scream, I'm sure a lot of us have heard that same scream throughout video games, the same sound effects, the same speed tree development program in order to create trees within their open world game. A lot of developers use the same tools and Unreal assets and Unity assets in their game because guess what? If someone already created an asset for a bunch of trash with shade in and it works, why not use it? Why animate, create, build, and test their own when they can just buy it, implement it in the game, and it costs them what, $50? If they developed it on their own, it'll probably cost 5 times that amount, and it will take up time that they need for testing and developing their game. So it's not the assets that's in question, it's actually the game source code that's in question right here. And I read this. This is again another, it's part of the right here, and you can read the entire case. And according to this case, it doesn't have to do with the assets. You can see Project P3 code, computer program registered, P3 audiovisual video game material, playtest, audiovisual material, spoken commentary, character, cleric, 2D artwork. You see, it's more about the source code than it is about. I don't see this have to do with assets. It has to do with the coding within the game, the artwork within the game. The artwork is also another thing that they can argue on behalf, but they do have a pretty strong case when it comes to these factors, and it just seems that it's building on the foundation of, hey, they took stuff that they didn't own. Because here's the thing, like I stated, when you work for a company, anything that is developed when you work at that company is owned by the company. You can't just simply take whatever you want. Whatever is dictated in the contract is what is owned by the company forever. And you can't just say, yeah, they don't see the untapped potential of this, because let's face it, there is an argument coming around that Nexon is butthurt because Dark and Darker is such a huge success and they didn't see the potential, so they're now trying to take down the developers who saw its untapped potential. That's not the case here. That's definitely not the case. First off, Nexon is a multi-million-dollar company. I doubt they give a damn about, one game. Like, it doesn't matter to them. It's more in line that this person stole what wasn't their property and are now using it for themselves. And here's the thing, this company was raided by South Korean officials, which I know there is, I talked to my friend Esther about this, and she said South Korea is kind of corrupt. There is apparently, I can't remember the specific term she used, but she said there are people in power who pay people like the police and the politicians in order to gain a leg up on, the community. They basically have power over everything. But the thing is, you can't submit like just random crap to the police and say, hey, we're going to raid this because you had loose fitting information. You actually have to provide a legitimate case that this person has stolen property of yours, and you have a case that it's, something is happening, that you have a right to raid their company and take what is yours. So that actually adds a large amount of legitimacy to it. It's not like they're paying the mafia or something in order to raid this company. This was done by police, which you can't just do. You have to, provide evidence. And again, I think a large of it also has to do with the fact that people like Dark and Darker. They do. This is a very, very popular game, and people want to see it come out. They want this game to exist. And if this case does come out that they did indeed steal, allegedly, I'm having to say that allegedly, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but if it comes out they did steal Nexon's property, guess what? They can shut down this entire project and that's it. There's no Dark and Darker, and that's going to upset a lot of people. I understand that. Like, you see a fun game and this game will be lost to history. I mean, recently the 3DS and Wii U digital shops just shut down, which means a lot of unique games tied to that digital store are gone. Game preservation is a huge thing, and this game just being gone, that's it. The other, and I think probably best positive news that would come from if this does turn out to be the case that they did indeed steal the code and everything, is that Nexon decides, hey, you can do and produce the game, but we get a cut of this game. Like, say they get, considering this case and everything, they'll probably go as high as 50%, which would be devastating for a developer because 30% already goes to Steam for every sale, so they'll only get 20%. But if they decide on that, that would probably be the best case scenario. I mean, it can go either way, but Nexon has a really, really strong case. I mean, again, a lot of this is just based on the fact they stole source code. I think that's what's the major issue that people are mistaken, as I stated, that they're taking this list, like shown in the Moist Critical video, and saying, oh no, they just used assets, it's not a big deal. That's not what's being argued in this letter. It's being argued that they in this court case, they stole game source code, and that's completely different. You can rewrite source code for an entire game. Say you memorize the entire source code for, I don't know, The Evil Within. You memorized the entire source code, you wrote it by hand from start to finish. You still stole it. It's literally their source code. You can't just take that. Source code is the life and blood of a game, of anything basically that's developed, and you can't just take that. That is company property. You can't just rewrite it and say, "Oh, now it's ours." No, you can't do that. That they can literally just say it's still our code. And granted, if you do anything with program and you know that some code overlaps, a lot of stuff does overlap, but certain unique elements within source code does not, because it's tied to things like animation, technical flaws, technical advancements. A lot of things go into the game in order to showcase its elements, such as, for example, in Resident Evil 4, when you encounter an enemy who just pops into a screen, a series of codes play in order to create the sound cues, the music, the tension, the enemy walking towards you, targeting you. Like, all of this is part of the source code, and you can't just take that and say you didn't use it, it's mine now, I developed it. No, you were under contract. Either way, I just think that this entire situation is more than people are trying to make it seem. And just because a company is small doesn't mean they can't be in the wrong. I remember there was a case between a person who wrote a book similar to Finding Nemo, and then he tried to sue Disney, stating that they stole his idea when it came out, that it was the opposite. Apparently, there was a promo for Finding Nemo, way before the movie was ever announced. That person likely saw it, and dependent showcasing the comparisons of those two pieces, the judge made a confirmation that basically he did steal it. And just because a company is like small doesn't mean they are incapable of doing bad things. It's like I think this is a weak comparison, but maybe it's palpable. The idea of like that South Park episode where Kyle's mom brings him to Native American healers because the stereotype is that Native Americans are more in tune with natural healing and everything, and it turns out that Kyle needed a kidney transplant because he was going through kidney failure. I think that's the mentality, that stereotypes about big corporations being evil is kind of, blinding people from the raw facts of what's going on right now. Like, I'm no big fan of corporations, believe me, but if someone's in the wrong, they're in the wrong. Everyone deserves their day in court. Even if you made a bad take, you still have your day to explain what happened. Not sure how it works in South Korea, but that's what I believe in, and I'm sure they probably have a similar system where both people have to argue their points in a court of law and able to determine whether who's in the wrong and who is in the right. If we didn't have a system like that, it would literally just fall apart about everyone. Same thing if you stole like anything you've ever developed for a company. Why would a company hire you knowing that they're paying you for your skills and you'll just take that and use it for yourself or take it to their competitor? You see, it starts to kind of fall apart when you start to think about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this entire thing is just, Nexon being butthurt about it, but likely based on everything we've seen here, it is the opposite, but we have to wait and see. Either way, tell me what you think in the comments below. Like if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. If you don't like the channel, don't recommendation is available. Either way, this is Adam talking, signing out.